Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hi, Jackie Kashian here. You're listening to The Dork Forest. You know the websites, dorkforest.com, thedorkforest.com if you like a determiner. JackieKashian.com has everything. Both of my podcasts, all of the stand-up stuff, the new album, links to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. But so, I think, does dorkforest.com, where you can look at old videos of different shows. Anyway, if you want to support the show, tell people about the show, review it on iTunes, thumbs it up on Pandora or Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. I appreciate that. You can donate. You can donate monthly. PayPal lets you do that. You can also do my Venmo if you like. It's at Jackie Kashian, absolutely everywhere. And my email address is jackie@jackiekashian.com, and that's what the PayPal is. The PayPal link is on jackiekashian.com and dorkforest.com. And go to any of them. Thanks for listening. There's merch. There's stand-up, there's tour guide, you can find out where I'm touring. This is getting long, so let's get into the show. Hi, Jackie Kashian in a hotel room in Milwaukee. Darla Kashian, welcome back to the program. You're on the Dork Forest. And I had a request asking me, because I guess when you talked cooking 2 years ago, you said, well, if this lockdown and pandemic is going to last a couple of months, we should all learn how to cook. And here we are 2 years later. And even in Milwaukee, there are some people wearing masks, though I've become a bit of a hobbyist. I don't have the conviction of my beliefs. And so if I'm the only one wearing a mask, I will sometimes take it off.
We just had lunch downtown, Minneapolis, which is thriving despite reports to the contrary. And we now have a vaccine requirement.
Okay.
And so, of course, the doomsayers were going to suggest that nobody was ever going to eat in a restaurant again.
Right, because people didn't want to show that their vaccines were,
Right, because it's HIPAA. And it's a good thing we had a reservation, is what I mean. This place is packed. Turns out people enjoy eating out. So.
People love eating out, and people love to safely eat out with other people who have chosen to take part in medicine. So
that's right. True
and science. Yeah, good for them. So I'm just here for just in between two gigs, and then I go home, and then I go to St. Louis. So I'm Are you going to come and see me in Madison this weekend? Probably.
I am indeed, but you remind me to make a hotel.
Okay, make a note.
Because they do enjoy a reservation.
Yeah, they do. And so good to see you. Now we're just chatting, but welcome to the Dork Forest. I told you to pick like 5 recipes, 3 that were kind of easy and 2 that you love that are fiddly. And what do you want to talk? Which ones do you want to talk about? What did your family say?
They said everything is fiddly.
Oh, so, everything is fiddly. Interesting.
Yes. So here's what I thought I'd do. Talk about a couple of simple things that people and everyone can reach out to me on social media, only on Twitter, because I don't do the
rest of it.
Machine.
Yeah. And it's at Darla Kashian, or is it at Bossy Kashian?
At Bossy Kashian.
At Bossy Kashian.
Yeah. So if you want actual recipes, just reach out to me for them. But here's the idea. These are simple enough to not require it. Right?
Oh, that is amazing. Yes.
So what do you do as I am here in my home office, still toiling away from home? We thought this was all going to end. It will someday.
One day.
But what do you do when 5 o'clock rolls around and hungry people want dinner on the table in less than half an hour? So there's a couple of go-tos that I have that are quick and easy. And so the number one thing I will say is when you walk in the door, put a pot of water to boil, because you are likely to just start a big pot of water to boil, because you're likely to be boiling some pasta, some rice, some potatoes, some veggies, something might be boiled. And a watched pot never boils. And so get it going.
And then think about what you're going to make.
Well, and have a plan. So it's funny, Jackie, because I needed to grocery shop this weekend. Okay. And I said to the lovely domestic associate, Nancy Kashian used to grocery shop once a week.
Once a week.
And she got the same thing every week. And there was no in between, right?
Right. She wasn't dashing off to she never did dash off to the market, did she?
No, there wasn't like a baguette from the French bakery. There wasn't a stop at the meat shop, right?
Right.
So I was thinking about
she
that.
drove up the driveway, she would just beep her horn a bunch, and then we all had to take our feet off the furniture and wash the dishes in the sink, and then walk outside and help her bring groceries in.
Come out and grab a bag of groceries. So most people, I don't know, maybe if you have 8 or 9 kids, you're shopping like that. But it did remind me in preparation for this that I don't always plan very well, right?
Okay, yeah.
So again, think about it in the morning. Pull out a package of boneless chicken thighs. Now, all you people eating breasts, I think we've talked about it before. They're terrible. Don't eat them. They're horrible.
Boneless, skinless chicken breasts are the work of the devil. But because you have to add so much chicken thighs, actually at least have some potential. But you still have to do the thing that the bone and the skin would do, which was add flavor.
Right. So here's a couple of simple things you can do. So one thing that I love are, I love the boneless thigh because you can make it into a bunch of different things. So here's a favorite of mine, homemade chicken nuggets. We call it chicken and crumbs. It's boneless chicken thighs. Have a box of breadcrumbs in the house, panko, preferably.
Just
Japanese.
Just a box, like you're not making your own breadcrumbs.
No, because I'm not, I'm not
you have a job.
Child.
Right. You have a job.
Correct.
Yes. So you just sell them by the box.
Keep a box. They do. So Panko, Kiko Man makes some. They could sponsor you. So have some breadcrumbs. So it's super easy, right? 3 steps, right? If you have the boiling water on, right?
Yep.
Here's what you do. And then like some kind of seasoned salt, right? Like anything. Like the other day I made it with pizza seasoning, right? Like dried herbs that were rosemary, thyme, basil.
Yeah, they're packaged as a thing. Like there's Italian,
right?
Or there's like a Cajun or whatever.
Correct. Whatever trips your boat, go for it. So simple 3 steps. Flour. Dredge them in flour.
Okay.
Dredge it in egg wash. So just a scrambled egg, right?
Okay.
Like take the egg, mix it up, whip it up. You can throw a little water in it if you want. And then roll it in the breadcrumbs. Throw it on a pan. Takes about 20 minutes to bake. And you have homemade chicken nuggets. They're healthier. They're tasty.
We're going to have to unpack this. So what you've done is you have frozen chicken thighs, right? So
you've defrosted them.
You've come up to room temperature, let us assume, maybe.
Yeah, or in the fridge.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Or do you pat them dry, like they say?
Yeah, you can. But don't get too crazy.
Right. Well,
it's not the end of the world if you don't.
But here's my real question: is when you put them in the flour, have you done anything to them?
Not a thing.
Not even salt.
You have preheated the oven. You have preheated the oven to 400 degrees.
Okay, so
there's
flour, and then once it's dry, flour is on it. You put it in eggs.
I know it sounds funny, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds
but
gross.
It works really well.
And then you put it in the panko and make sure it's all covered up. And you haven't cut it. Have you cut it into nuggets yet? It's just a chicken thigh.
You could. Again, they're small.
Right.
They're a little, chickens aren't big and the thighs are not robust.
Right. It's not huge. It's not hugely big. Wow, I'm having some lighting
power issues there, huh?
Yeah. But Okay, and so then you just bake it in a 400-degree oven or whatever for
about 20
until they're
minutes.
done. Yeah, 20 minutes or
Right,
so.
20,
Okay.
25 minutes. If you're a person who cares about the temperature, it should be about 165, right?
Right.
So they should be cooked all the way through. Now, here's the cool thing about it, right? So now you have homemade chicken nuggets, super quick.
Yeah.
And you can drop your veg. Like, we eat a lot of broccoli in our house.
Okay.
So just some steamed broccoli. I don't actually steam it. I just boil it.
Oh,
right?
because you have boiling water. Yeah.
Because now you have boiling water. It's in the oven. You're ready to go. You can. Do you want to make some rice? Here's the secret rice recipe.
Okay.
You can make rice just like you make pasta. There's no magic to rice. Get a
cup of rice.
Strainer. Yeah, cup of rice in 2 cups of boiling water. Boil it until the rice is done. I don't know, 7-8 minutes. Pour it in a mesh strainer. Not one that's got big holes in it. Right.
Right.
So,
it's got to be a fine enough
strainer.
Don't
throw away because now you're throwing it away.
Don't throw away your rice, you guys.
Right.
So, but you're not.
Now you have rice.
So if you have 8 cups of water boiling, because that you put on,
I might take 2 off for rice.
Okay, you take 2. Maybe you take 2 out, put it on another heater in another pan.
Yep.
And it's already mostly boiling, and then you add your cup of rice, and then you cover it.
Yep.
And you cook that for 10 minutes, and it's done.
But you're not looking to make like pilaf style rice that's like fluffy. You're just cooking rice. So let's say you pull those 2 cups of water off. You could even throw a bouillon cube in if you wanted.
Right.
I know
with
it's
those
gross.
2 cups. But it's salty. People like it.
Yeah. People enjoy it. Right. But now you have some rice to go on the side. Right. And you've got some veg.
Yep.
Easy peasy. Right. Okay. Now, the millions of people who are going to reach out and say, but Jackie, I don't eat chicken.
Oh.
I'm a vegetarian. Hey, guess what? You know what's awesome? Tofu nuggets. You do exactly the same thing.
Oh, what do you use? Do you use a medium strength tofu? Because that
I like a firm tofu myself.
Yeah, just because they hold together a little bit better. I mean, you have to kind of work with tofu a lot, but if you do, you know exactly the kind of tofu.
Then you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's check this out. So you asked about seasoning the chicken before you do this.
Yeah.
Right. Chicken's got a lot of fat. It's going to pick up the flavor from the crumbs and that sort of thing. Tofu is a blank canvas, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to want to season that tofu before you run it through the flour, run it through the egg wash, run it through the panko. I like to use a 5-spice powder.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a Chinese spice powder. Super tasty and delicious. Yep. Again, easy peasy. But guess what? You don't even have to bake it for 20 minutes, right? You're just going to bake it until the breadcrumbs are crispy.
Yeah.
Correct. Let's say you go to the grocery store and because of the problem with supply chain, there's no chicken thighs.
Right.
Well, they have super thin pork chops, right?
Oh, yeah. But no bone.
You can do this with pork chops.
Yeah, you could do it with pork chops.
Yep.
Can you do it with beef?
I never have, but I don't suppose there's no reason why you couldn't. But here's the other thing. Don't you have like a fish company that sponsors you?
Right. Jackie and Lori show. Yes. Wild Alaskan.
Yeah. So I've done it with cod and halibut as well.
Okay.
Right. Now that's kind of a fancy fish to be making nuggets out of.
Yeah, it is.
But my kids really love fish sticks. Right.
And then what you're doing is they're not nuggets, they're sticks. But you're not even cutting them anyway. So you're essentially giving them one giant nugget.
Correct. Okay. And then they cut them themselves. Now, if your kids are little or incompetent, you can, you don't have to leave it big. You can cut it up yourself.
Right. And then it'll toss easier if you cut it up yourself in the flour or the egg wash and the panko. Yes.
Yeah. But then you have more steps, right? And I don't like to touch raw meat. So, I want to do it as quickly as possible.
You love to cook. Darla Kashian loves to cook, owns thousands and thousands of gloves before the pandemic even happened.
Oh, I was the go-to when people needed gloves. They knew I had them. So here's the thing to think about. Now you've made different meal, it's the same thing, right? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, right? It's a simple thing. You learn to do it once, and now you can do it with other kinds of proteins, with other kinds of, vegetarian proteins as well.
Okay.
So easy peasy, right?
Right. Yes.
But you know what? Here's the criticism you'll get. Well, now you had me buy these weird breadcrumbs, right? Well, what else am I going to use those for, right?
Okay, sure.
So the boy the other day says, I would really love to have Swedish meatballs.
Okay.
To which I say, how do you even know about Swedish meatballs? And he says, and I am embarrassed, but I'll come clean on the Dork Forest. He says, remember that time in the Sky Club?
Oh,
the Delta Sky Club.
They
had Swedish meatballs.
Right.
So my go-to for a lot of recipes where I'm not maintaining a bookshelf of Swedish meatball recipes.
Okay.
I do subscribe to the New York Times recipe app, and they of course have many choices of different
of all the foods, I'm sure. What is the subscription? How much does that cost?
I think it's like
$50 a year, or
maybe something like that.
Okay,
right?
but it's a separate app from the New York Times.
Correct, and I use it a lot because it gives you a lot of good ideas, and it has a lot of, and it's really targeted to, families cooking at home. And
Okay.
I know the Washington Post has a lot of recipes that way too. So
interesting.
So I went to but here's what I was reminded of when I went and looked up the Swedish meatball recipe. Meatballs, super easy to make. I make them all the time. I make little ones, big ones. And here's the cool thing about meatballs. They are putsy by any measure, right? But you can make 100 meatballs and throw them in the freezer.
Oh.
Now I make them and I freeze them on sheets.
On cookie sheets?
And then I pull them off the sheets and put them in a Ziploc bag.
Okay.
So that you always have meatballs handy, right? So meatballs, so easy and so simple.
What kind of meat? Beef? Ground beef?
Beef, lamb, chicken, turkey.
Ground turkey.
Right.
I've seen it. So you get like a pound. How many meatballs are in are they the size of marbles, or are they the size of $50?
Well, because I'm putsy again, right? I measure them. So I make 1 ounce meatballs. They're about the size of maybe between $50 and $25.
So what do you mean? Do you have like a tiny ice cream scoop?
I have a kitchen scale. I like them all to be the same size.
Okay.
But again, people let me not lead you down a path of OCD, right? It's, so again, meatballs, super simple. And you don't have to have all the ingredients in the world. So now you have these breadcrumbs.
Right, that you use for the other thing. Yeah.
Right, now you have like half a cup left, right? Ugh, what am I going to do with that? So you take the half a cup of breadcrumbs, 2 pounds of meat, chop up an onion, make it fine, saute the onion. It makes it better and let it cool, right? Okay. This is more of like a Sunday afternoon project. If it's,
and the kids can help.
Or like and the kids can help, and it's super fun. And if you have gloves, it's not messy. and then again, with the seasoning, right? What do you want? Do you want an Italian meatball? Well, again, like those Penzi dry spice mixes, right? Easy, simple.
Right. If you want to get fiddly, you can do it, but you don't have to. You can
without
just buy.
question, but you don't have to. Yeah.
Right.
Because here's the thing. It's like a dry spice is perfect for this. And by the way, if you bought dried spices before the pandemic, they're old and need to be replaced. Right? You should replace your dry spices every year or two because they do get old and dry and gross.
Yeah, I'm not doing that, but I appreciate that you're probably right. I run through cumin and coriander a lot. But other than that,
so you use that.
Like paprika, I don't replace that. We have tarragon we go through pretty quick because Andy makes a chicken tarragon popover. But other than that, I'm just like, well, it's close enough. Yeah. Like if it's turmeric or whatever.
But if you got one of those fancy spice racks when you moved into your house in 1973, and it's next
you
to
might
the
want to start over.
spoon display.
Yeah,
time to start over.
Right.
So,
and if you can't taste the spices, what I would say that it might be a better way to go. Like you used it and you were like, this was supposed to taste like something, and it doesn't. Maybe I would say then for sure replace the spice. Also
very, very good point. So again, half a cup of breadcrumbs, 2 eggs, saute an onion, throw it in there, some garlic if you care. Right. I do a lot.
Hot sauce
if you like a spicy. Here, think about this. What if you like an Asian style?
Yeah, fish sauce.
Right. Little fish sauce, a little sesame oil, little soy sauce, right? If you don't know if it's going to taste good, go light on the seasoning and then fry up a little bit of it and taste it, right?
Okay. And
so that it's not too late.
Do you add oil to the meatballs or just a little bit because it's usually fat, right?
Yeah. So you would do a toasted sesame oil because of the flavor, right?
Okay.
Not because of the fat.
Got it.
But something like that, and really simple, really easy. A little bit, maybe some ginger, maybe some lemongrass, right?
Right.
Those kinds of things. The Swedish meatballs called for nutmeg, all kinds of weird stuff. Turned out we had it because we're those people.
Right. Christmassy kind of. Was it a Christmas?
Yeah.
Meatball.
Yeah. And Phil told me that you can buy an already made meat mix at Ingebretsen's on Lake Street. So
okay.
But I wasn't going to do that. But I will now because I was, I want to support Ingebretsen's. It was delicious. But again, super easy. And what can you use those meatballs for, right?
Yeah.
All kinds of things. Now, we had Swedish meatballs. We had with pasta. I made a cream sauce. The cream sauce is so easy, right? It's just make a roux, add some chicken stock, some of those onions, and then let it thicken. It was great. Really, really easy. But let's say, I only made one batch, but I could have easily, it would have been just as easy to have made many more. And then you freeze them. Now, what can you do with them? You can put them in a soup. You have them ready for a pasta. You can have just like a meatball appetizers if you're having friends over. We served it with cranberry sauce. Okay. We didn't have lingonberries. So again, simple using ingredients that you have in your house.
Right. And 2 pounds of meatballs, 2 pounds of ground beef make like 30 meatballs or
30 to 35 meatballs. Yeah.
Right. How many ounces
you're adding
are
other
in a
things.
pound? Oh, right. Yeah.
16, but you're adding bread and you're adding eggs and
you're adding the panko and eggs and onion. So if it's 32 ounces of meat, there's at least 32 meatballs in there if they're 1 ounce.
Yeah, you're probably talking like 40
yeah,
or so.
Closer to 40. That's and then if you're baking them on a cookie sheet, just sort of spread out.
I'm just freezing them.
Oh, you're not even baking
them on. No, because I want to use them for the purpose when I'm ready, right?
Oh, okay. So they're just raw. They've been rolled. That's why the onions are cold. They're just put on the thing. You make sure that they're solid frozen. Then you put them in a Ziploc bag, and you can take them out 6 at a time, or a dozen at a time, or whatever.
Yep, as you need, right? And again, then you have less of that crisis at 5 o'clock when you're trying to think, oh my gosh, what am I going to make for dinner?
Right. Okay.
Oh, that's right. I have meatballs, right?
Yeah, I could.
Super, super easy.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that I make. I probably made this for you. Just regular chicken thighs.
Yeah.
Right.
Just baked.
So in the
chicken thighs.
Baked. Right. Easy. Right.
Yeah.
Put them out. Salt,
pepper.
That's it. No pepper.
Not even pepper.
I don't like pepper because pepper burns in the oven. Just salt. Bake them for 25 to 30 minutes. It's almost impossible to destroy a chicken thigh.
No, you would have to overcook it. That is the only way.
And by that, you'd have to bake it for over an hour. But think about this, that when you're doing that, So get one of those sheet pans, right? And so this has been a popular theme in cooking of doing sheet pan dinners, right?
Okay.
So we're a family of 4. So you throw 6 or 8 chicken thighs. You chop up some potatoes. You put some, white potatoes and sweet potatoes, because I have a kid who doesn't eat orange things. And then you can just put like very high quality frozen broccoli.
Okay.
And bake it all together, right? So you want everything to bake at about the same temperature. So you're going to put those nice frozen broccoli stalks.
Yeah.
You're going to put those on frozen. You're going to cut the potatoes into like quarters so that they bake, right?
Okay. Quick.
You could parboil them, but again, we want to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And you're gonna make this all on a sheet pan. I put foil down because I like cleanup to be easy.
Yep.
But then you just put the sheet pan on the table for dinner.
Oh, okay.
Easy peasy, right?
So what's in this? It's just potatoes and broccoli?
Yeah. You have a full meal on a sheet pan done in 30 minutes.
Okay.
Your broccoli's going to get a little crispy and caramelized.
Yeah. People love that.
Everything's going to soak up all the chicken fat from the baking. It's going to be good.
Wait, are you putting the chicken thighs on top of the
I just put them next to each other.
Oh, because it kind of reminds me of chicken bread. But if you put them on top, all the schmaltz would go down and cook it that way.
You can do that too.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you can do, and that's good with anything. If you have leftover rice or
bread or anything.
So speaking of rice, if you've been ordering takeout and you have leftover rice, you can freeze it.
Right.
So like Chinese takeout rice, just put it in a Ziploc bag, squish all the air out, and freeze it. You can use that for fried rice. You can use that for chicken rice.
Yep.
So instead of bread, just put that on the bottom of the pan and bake the chicken on top of it.
Yep.
So
super
easy.
Will be delicious. And sometimes Chinese restaurants, you could order extra rice on purpose to do that.
Right.
Because it's really cheap.
Yep.
Yeah. Because they make so much rice, and it's usually $1 for a pretty good pile of rice. And
exactly. So the other thing I thought I would talk about is some of the things that you can do that can save some steps.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I have an Instapot, and I'm sure people who during the pandemic bought all those dried beans, right? Hopefully bought an Instapot to go with it. So one of the things, although it's going to make me bitter, it's sometimes hard to find. When I make things in the Instapot, I always use frozen onions.
Frozen onions?
Yeah, you can just buy a bag of like chopped onions.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I've never even seen that. But it makes sense that they would have it.
You haven't gone looking. So you can also sometimes find Cascadian Farms has mirepoix, so onion, celery, carrot.
Okay.
Frozen. Again, a bag. Just throw it in.
All together.
So again, if you're making soups or beans, it's super easy, right? And now you're staring at those beans you bought, in March of 2020.
2020.
When was it? 2019?
Yeah. It was 2020.
I don't know. It was so long ago.
You're like, but I bought dried beans because it was the end.
Now what do I do?
Yeah.
Right.
You have to soak them overnight with a stick of kombu. Anyway, but
you
don't.
No. So, but you don't, right? So again, and you'll find in the frozen vegetable section, all kinds of these seasoning things. So if you like a mixed pepper, which I do not, but people do.
Oh, the mixed bell pepper.
Yeah, you can find frozen peppers, right? Again, throw them in with the beans, a little bit of stock or water, easy,
Right.
And then one of my favorites is homemade lentil soup, right?
Yeah.
Because it's quick and fast, and especially in the Instant So, and it's very
almost
easy
done before you've said the sentence, because lentils.
The table.
Yeah. It's how do you do that? Because I've never made lentil soup in the Instant Pot.
Oh, so I have a lamb share, which I'm sure people don't have, but I live in the Midwest, so
Oh, you bought part of an animal that was cut up.
Yeah, half a lamb.
Okay.
So, but you can do it vegetarian as well. So again, those frozen onions, a pound of like lamb stew meat or like a shank or whatever, garlic, saute it, and then throw in a cup or two of lentils, and then cover it with stock. Not too much, because one thing you notice in the Instapot is that it doesn't really evaporate, right? And so you can end up with things that are way too brothy.
Yeah. Because
So you don't want
lentils
to
usually
overfill
soak
it.
it. Yeah, they usually soak it up on a regular pot.
So I just do like just enough to, maybe cover it by an inch or so.
Okay.
You can throw in some lemon juice or, like other seasoning, bay leaves. If you're out in California, you can cut some rosemary when you're out walking the dog. And boom, it's done, right? That's it. The stew meat cooks, the lentils cook.
I usually with my lentil soup, I toast cumin and coriander and then grind it, and then I put it's just a teaspoon of each, and then I just do garlic and sometimes a bay leaf if I remember. And it's delicious.
So on some of the like more complicated things, I think you mentioned that I had made ramen.
Yeah, I wanna tell people that these are very simple meals that Darla has makes on the regular. But there was a time, and that time occasionally occurs regularly, when you like a fiddly recipe. You like it to take a while. And I remember this ramen soup where you made the noodles, you coddled an egg for a day and a half. There was some damn thing happening. But tell us about this ramen for my sake.
Well, be careful. I volunteered to do a pop-up dinner.
Right.
Well, I suggested to a friend of mine who was doing these pop-up dinners, seating two seatings, 25 people each.
Wow.
That I would love to be the guest chef. And he said, okay. And then he called me and said, would you like to do that? My kids were like, maybe Judah wasn't even born yet. They were really little.
Right.
And so I did a pop-up for 50 of homemade ramen.
Yeah.
And it was insane. It was so crazy. Because little did I know that, like, if you go to a ramen place, they're not making noodles. They're buying noodles from a ramen noodle factory somewhere. But I made 55 portions of noodles. I made a homemade vegetarian and a homemade pork stock.
Right.
I made soft-boiled eggs. And here's what I learned, that you need to do that with old eggs. And it was funny because I had eggs from the co-op. And the night of the event, I had one of the waiters had to run to the neighborhood, like
a 7-Eleven or something. Yeah,
and get me 24 eggs.
Yeah.
I made like a salt cured salmon for an appetizer.
Wow.
And then we did a coconut, a vegan coconut rice pudding. With tropical fruit for dessert. And it was, these are words I've rarely uttered. I have bitten off more than I can chew. But it was a blast and we had such a good time.
And you lived and everyone loved it, I bet.
Everyone loved it. We had a great time. So probably the most hilarious part of it was, so my friend Eli, who was doing this, they did this like at a college house on the campus of the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
So like I, of course, have a grown-up adult lady affluent stove.
Yeah.
That when you turn it on, it heats to like 50,000 BTUs.
Right. Almost immediately. Yeah.
Eli and his friends had like a stove from the Goodwill.
Right. A rental property stove.
Yeah, yeah. So keeping the water boiling to serve the pasta, that was, or the ramen, that was its own special. But I learned a lot, and it was super fun because it was right about the time that Momofuku was so popular.
Right.
And so like I made the roast pork out of that recipe, which by the way is so easy. I just did that over the weekend. Just roasted a pork shoulder at like, you just put it in the oven in the morning at 225, 250 degrees. And at night when you come in, you have, falling off the bone pork roast.
Yeah. It's got to be
Right.
5 or 8 hours or something. But what spices are you doing for ramen? I mean, I have several questions. One is, you said you made a vegetarian broth, a vegetarian stock, because I know that a lot of times with the ramen stock, they cook the bone for like 18 hours for the pork.
Yeah.
How do you simulate that with a vegetarian? How do you get that richness in a vegetarian?
I just hope that vegetarians were less judgy.
Interesting.
Yeah,
And they are.
yeah.
They are. They're used to.
Yeah. So you don't really get that same like tonkatsu, like porky fat, full body fat.
That
but I made a
collagen,
mushroom.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I made a mushroom stock and it was delicious.
Yeah.
And I would say of the 50 guests, there were probably 12, and we knew in advance who was going to be vegetarian.
Right.
So
with a vegetarian stock, are you putting the mushrooms in the stock in addition to putting it in the soup?
Yeah, so I actually made trumpet mushroom chips instead of so like if you went to have like a pork ramen, right, there would be pork, like pulled pork in the ramen, right? So instead of that, for the vegetarians, I actually roasted, and they come out almost dried trumpet mushrooms. That with just a little bit of olive oil and salt, and that provided like the meaty texture that we were looking for to substitute for the pork. And then everything else could be the same, right? All the other like veg.
Right, because it wasn't vegan; it was just vegetarian. And
right. So although there were some vegans as well, but I did say when I agreed to do it, no gluten free. Okay. You couldn't really do that as a gluten free option.
Right. That. Yeah. That
so
was
the only thing in that menu that would have put off a vegan was the soft boiled egg, right? And that was fine. So you just didn't have an egg.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because the people who sat with people who had the mushroom ramen, really, all those people really wanted the mushroom chips. Right. Like I very easily could have served that as like an appetizer.
Or just as something to put on top. Because sometimes and it's usually just scallions, isn't it? Where you get a side thing to put on top.
I used also some sesame rice crackers.
Okay, nice.
That to give it some texture. I think the only objection I had to that whole meal was that it was soft, right? And so, when you want to have, like when I think of planning a menu, right, I want to have color, I want to have flavor, and I want to have texture. Yeah. Right. And that was a meal that was really, I felt like a little bit too much on the soft side of things.
Right. There wasn't anything crunchy. And how big are trumpet mushrooms?
They're big. They're like
the shiitake caps or something, or?
No, they're more like a full-size trumpet mushroom is like maybe 3.5 to 4 inches. They're big, thick, meaty mushrooms.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're wide, right? And you just cut them in. Yeah. So they're really good. And when you dry them, or like sort of dry roast them, like your entire house will smell like a mushroom farm. It's kind of
outstanding.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But it gives you a lot of that earthy, that same rich earthiness that you
the
would
meat.
Get,
yeah. That makes sense.
For. I think another putsy thing that I've been making a lot of lately is larb.
Larb?
The
lamb
Thai dish.
It's a kibble, right?
No, well, yeah, it's like a salad that you get in Thai restaurants.
Okay.
And so it's finely chopped chicken or beef. If you go to an authentic Thai restaurant, it's usually beef and then like some beef tendon, which I happen to like, but mostly I've been doing it with chicken. But
Right.
So finely chopped chicken with like all kinds of herbs, Thai basil, cilantro, kaffir lime, some ginger, lime juice,
Is it served cold?
scallion. It's served room temperature,
Oh, weird.
usually with cabbage. Next time you go for Thai food, you should have it.
Yeah, I
It's
think they
delicious.
have it at the Thai place we've been to. I've seen it on the menu. I just haven't. I don't think that I've had it much.
And then it has and it's interesting. This is I think this is the reason I love it, is that it has toasted rice powder in it, which is kind of hard to find. I did find it on the Amazon,
Okay.
not in the Amazon, and you sprinkle that on, and it gives it like a crunchy overtone to it as well,
Yeah,
which I think is super interesting.
that is interesting. That is what? Wow. What So if you're making that, so obviously you cook this finely chopped meat, and then then you cool it to room temperature, and then you toss it with all those vegetables and stuff.
Yeah. So then you just and there is the Times has a good recipe for it, but I would say triple the herbs that they call for.
Oh, okay.
In terms of quantity.
Because of the flavors, it
just is so bright, and and more is better in this case, right?
Right. So the meat is fine. You could stay with that.
Yeah. But like the herbs and the way the herbs interact, it just is so delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a big hit with a bunch of friends who've come for dinner.
Right.
And the kids like it too, because it's animal protein that doesn't look like the original beef.
Right.
So
they don't need
to eat that as well.
They like that better.
Yeah. It is a really good dish with mock duck.
Okay.
So
you can make it with mock duck. Yeah.
As well, if you're that way.
That's right. It is not called mock duck on the West Coast. It is called seitan.
Okay.
And I think it might even be called a third name that I can't remember the name of, but it's one of the essentially, it's a soy protein, right?
It's wheat gluten, actually, I think, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, that actually sounds more right than whatever.
Yeah.
And what would you say? Now we got about 10 minutes left here. What would you say is your favorite fiddly dish that you like to make now, besides that larb?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one of those air fryers?
I had one and I gave it away.
Oh, because
it was the dumbest thing ever. Yeah.
I just got one for Christmas. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
So, yeah. I do like I like to make sarma, which is putsy, right?
Yep.
But it's just time consuming. It's not difficult, right? You just need to.
Yeah, a lot of Armenian
it's a good thing
food.
to do with the kids.
Yeah, Armenian food is almost entirely just time consuming. Sort of like pasta, it is not hard to make it. It is just it takes a long time to make it. And so
I think those kinds of things, like I love to make homemade pasta.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that's something I don't do enough, or I wish I spent more time doing that.
Okay.
And I used to a lot when Noah was little. Like she actually didn't know that pasta came from a box.
Okay.
Because I made so much of it. I do love to make bread, and that is. I do resent the new to bread baking, but not sourdough. Like I don't want a living thing on like molding on my counter.
Oh, right. That and the commitment to that is real. To try to have to keep it alive.
Yes. Also, there's a lot of really lousy sourdough breads out there. They're dumb and heavy and gross.
Okay, so what's your favorite? What do you like to make bread-wise?
I make a lot of dinner rolls for Shabbat. So
Is it just
like
biscuits or?
I make a lot of biscuits too. Yeah. No, dinner roll is more like it's like a milk bread. So it's warm milk, flour, yeast, salt. And usually a little bit of oil or a butter.
Okay.
Can go in it. And it's just like a Parker roll, like a soft, fluffy roll.
Okay.
Like kids love that.
Yeah.
And that's super popular. Sometimes I just make regular bread dough and turn it into dinner rolls. Right.
Oh, okay.
I think I did
What's
that
the
last
difference?
time you guys were over.
Yeah. What's the difference? What's regular bread dough? It doesn't have.
It's just flour, water, yeast, and salt.
Okay. And the bread dough had oil in it, I think.
The Parker
And
rolls
milk.
have milk and like butter in it.
Okay.
So,
there we go. Yeah.
I will say, and I believe this is a representative trauma of our childhood. I do make breakfast. I make breakfast every day for the kids.
Okay.
But like healthy and like fun breakfast. Like this morning they had crepes.
Oh.
Are
crepes? Do you have a crepe pan, or do you just do it in the skillet?
I have a Lodge, the company that makes cast iron skillets.
Yeah.
Makes a really good steel skillet, like a tempered steel skillet.
Yeah.
And I just make them in that, and they're super easy. It's and it's an easy recipe. It's a cup of flour, a cup of milk, a cup of eggs.
A cup of eggs?
Yeah. So one of the things is,
How many eggs is that? It can be 5?
Like 3.
Okay.
No, like 3 eggs. Yeah, and so one of the reasons is like it's an actual protein breakfast.
Okay.
Right? Because you get a lot of eggs in them.
Yeah.
And and they're simple and easy, and they cook up quickly. And I have a little spatula to flip them, and
And then do you make them sweet or savory?
They like them with Nutella. For myself, I prefer them with cheese.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But so like stuff like that, which I sort of feel like, I mean, I could see by the end of the pandemic how people are like, I'm sick of cooking 3 meals a day for my family.
Right.
Right. Like my kids were super happy to have school lunch for like the first 2 weeks of going back to school. And then they were like, no, we'll just have home lunch again. So I'm backpacking lunches every day. So
yeah. So what do you put in the, is it peanut butter and jelly with an apple that they have that's been sitting on that sandwich for 5 days?
Oh yeah, sure. No. Judah does take a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes and again, like, don't make your life miserable, right?
Yeah.
Like you can get an economical bean and cheese burrito, at Whole Foods or, Ralph's or wherever you shop.
Yeah.
And I will heat it up in the morning, wrap it in foil, and put it in Noah's lunch. Right.
Okay. So it won't be piping. Right. It won't be piping hot by lunch, but it'll be at least be warm. Like at least room temperature. Yeah.
Yeah. She takes leftovers almost every day if we have them. So, we do a lot of like a cauliflower or chicken curry.
Okay.
Like a butter chicken with the jarred sauce from Target, right?
Trader Joe's,
like
somewhere.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. That sauce with a head of cauliflower, and if you want to put a protein in it, great. But if you don't have to. And you have dinner on the table, and you've already boiled rice, so easy peasy.
Right. And do you ever eat peas? Because you've said easy peasy 3 times. What do you think about the pea?
I don't like peas myself, but the kids do enjoy a tuna noodle.
No, really?
Peas.
casserole.
I know. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. They never had a
terrible.
Nancy Kashian special with crunchy potato chips on top that was foul from start to stem to stern.
They have not. They have not.
And I have tried to
So.
explain to people that Nancy was like, I'm making breakfast every morning, but it's 2 days were egg days and 2 days were pancake days. But pancake days, when they didn't have fruit in them, the pancakes were too dry. And when they did have fruit in them, they weren't done. So I didn't until I went post college. I think all through college, I avoided pancakes because I thought they were gross. And then I met people who knew how to make pancakes. And now I don't
so many
like
things.
Pancakes. Yeah.
Right? Like, like bacon. I think the only bacon we ate growing up were those fake vegan Bako bits that she would mix.
Oh, right. That she would shake on things.
Yeah.
She never
and
made
put
bacon,
into
I don't think.
Scrambled eggs. No, I don't ever remember eating really any pork.
No, she used to burn pork chops. Remember, she used to burn they were like shoe leather. Yeah. It was a bad. She didn't.
A blessed memory, mind you. This was not her skill set.
It was not her skill set, and she was like, she had to feed a lot of people for a couple of years, and she was like, let's just get this out there, and did the best she could, while also juggling 1,000 other tasks. So
yeah. So here's the other thing I will add, and a friend of mine stopped by this morning to my little home office here. And reminded me that it was at my suggestion that they signed up for HelloFresh.
Oh, yeah.
And her 2 kids are responsible for making HelloFresh twice a week.
Oh, when the HelloFresh comes.
Yes. And that's another thing that I think if people can afford it is a great introduction.
Well, let me tell you something about Green Chef and HelloFresh are owned by the same people now. And if you go to Green Chef and use code Jackie Laurie 130, you will get $130 off. Which means that it's super expensive, because $130 off means that it must cost $200 or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I do like about Green Chef is that it's usually proteins that I wouldn't usually buy, like fish. And it's sauces and stuff, and it's pretty eco-friendly. Initially, they packed them in all these adorable little plastic things that were just heartbreaking to throw out. And now everything is in sort of a baggie, is in a tiny zip bag, which is good.
Well, and the thing about it is there's very little waste because the portions are appropriate. And if you have a family, I'm lucky that I have people who will eat leftovers.
Yeah.
But very little goes to waste. And I think that we waste so much food in our country. And if you can avoid doing that, that helps make up some of the costs as well. And I also feel like anytime you're not, and I know that with inflation and food costs going up, it's really been challenging for people. But anytime you eat at home is always less expensive than eating out.
Right. Even if you've done a Green Chef thing. Yeah, for sure.
Correct. So that's another thing to keep in mind, that learning to cook is a really good way to be a little bit more economical in your home.
And the kids it's a good chore for them, and it's a good skill for them to learn. So all of that is pretty great.
People should be able to feed themselves.
What's weird is I think we started at 7. I think we might have another 5 minutes, but we could also wrap it up because it's fine. But what else would you, do you shop every couple of days? Because I think that Nancy shopped once a week because it was cheaper.
Yeah, I do. And I'm kind of noodling on a resolution to figure that out, right? To be more planful and more frugal about it, because it does seem both like harder on the environment. Like, one thing is I'm never out and about in the world anymore.
Right.
So I'm better than I used to be because I'm not like dropping by the co-op on the way home from work.
Right.
Because I'm 15 feet from my kitchen here at work.
Right. You're right. Exactly. Now you're like, I'm sure there's something I can defrost. Yeah.
Exactly.
If not lamb. I'm sure there's plenty of lamb.
And fish, because I got the fish there too.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, tonight we're having, well, people will find this hilarious. Bon Appetit had a halibut with Asian style caramel sauce.
Okay.
And I'm going to make that tonight, but the boy is not going to eat that.
Yeah.
So I have a box of fish sticks as well. So I'll make some fish sticks for him.
Wow. So
a little bit of pandering.
A little bit of pandering. Occasional pandering, as long as it's done with love. You know, it's all good. And I am going to go over to our brother Russ's for dinner tonight. And I assume it'll be chicken and pilaf.
There you go.
But maybe
Nothing
it will
wrong
not.
with that.
Nothing wrong with that. I love chicken and pilaf. It's one of my very faves. Darla Kashian is at Bossy Kashian on Twitter. So if you want to ask anything about it, you can go and find her there. And other things are probably on her pinned tweet, that it's a mystery. Who is she? Who does she work for? What happens? You'll find out.
I don't know.
It's
Google.
It's
tell you everything
your
you need
friend.
to know.
It certainly will. But thank you so much for doing this. It was a request, and I was like, oh, attainable goal, I bet. So thank you so much for talking about some easy stuff to make, some fiddly stuff to make, and some good advice. Thanks for doing the show.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. Next time, we'll talk anchovies.
Ooh, Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?